I never thought a few seconds of pure, unadulterated cringe would be the thing that destroyed my marriage. But here I am, sitting in a silent apartment, wondering if I'm the villain for exposing the man I loved to the entire world. My husband, Mark, became a viral sensation overnight, but it wasn't for his talent or his charm. It was for being the most embarrassing human being on the internet, and he didn't even realize it. He thinks he's a misunderstood genius, a rising star in the digital age, while the rest of the world is laughing at him, not with him. I had to make a choice. Do I let him continue to humiliate our family for the sake of his clout? Or do I pull the plug on his delusions in the most public way possible? Was I wrong for destroying his career, to save my own sanity? Or would you have let the man you love turn your life into a laughingstock just to see him smile? Tell me, if your partner was becoming famous for all the wrong reasons and refused to stop, would you have protected them or let the fire burn them down? Let me take you back to how this all started, because 3 years ago, Mark was just a normal guy. He was a software consultant, a bit introverted, maybe a little socially awkward, but he was grounded. We had a quiet life, a nice house and plans for a family. Then the lockdown happened, and like everyone else, Mark got bored. He started scrolling through TikTok, which was fine at first, but then he started analyzing the trends. He told me one night over dinner that the people making it big weren't special. They just knew how to work the algorithm. He started filming himself doing these high-energy, over-the-top dances and alpha male motivational speeches in our living room. At first, I thought it was a joke. I laughed, thinking he was doing a parody of those cringe-inducing influencers. But when he didn't laugh back, a cold shiver went down my spine. He was serious. He spent hours practicing the smolder in the bathroom mirror. He bought a ring light. He started wearing leather jackets with no shirt underneath, and lip-syncing to aggressive breakup songs while staring intensely into the camera. It was painful to watch. I'm talking full-body chills of second-hand embarrassment. He would post these videos where he'd pretend to be a dark, mysterious CEO who saves a girl from a bully, playing both characters himself with terrible transitions. The worst part was that he started getting views. Not because the content was good, but because it was so genuinely cringy that people were sharing it to mock him. The comments were brutal. People were calling him the final boss of cringe and the CEO of secondary embarrassment. But Mark filtered it all out. He only saw the numbers going up. He'd show me his phone beaming saying, "Look babe, 10,000 views in an hour. I'm trendin'." I tried to tell him gently. I said, "Mark honey, I'm not sure people are watching because they like the acting. Maybe we should keep this as a private hobby." He looked at me like I was the one who didn't understand art. He told me I was holding him back, and that I had a poverty mindset because I couldn't see his potential. He started spending our savings on content gear. Gimbals, designer clothes he'd never wear in real life, and even a rented luxury car for a day in the life video that was so staged it made my skin crawl. He stopped going into the office, claiming he was transitioning to full-time content creation. Our friends started texting me, asking if Mark was okay or if his account had been hacked. I had to hide my phone during lunch breaks because I couldn't bear to see another notification of him thrusting his hips to a slowed-down pop song while wearing a fedora. It reached a breaking point when he started involving me. He wanted me to play the unappreciative wife who realizes her husband is actually a Sigma male superstar. I refused. I told him it was affecting my professional reputation. I'm a high school teacher, for heaven's sake. My students found his account. I walked into my classroom one Tuesday and heard a group of seniors whispering and giggling, and when I looked at the screen they were huddling around, there was my husband, wearing a cape made of a bedsheet, doing a POV. "I'm your vampire protector" video. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I went home and begged him to stop. I cried. I told him our marriage was suffering because he wasn't the man I married anymore. He was a character in a bad digital circus. He just told me that haters are just fans in disguise, and that even my reaction was good energy for the brand. He was addicted to the dopamine hit of the notifications, even if every single comment was a joke at his expense. He was becoming famous for being a clown, and he was inviting me to join the act. To make matters worse, our bank account was taking a massive hit. Mark wasn't just buying clothes, he was buying engagement. He started paying for bot services to boost his likes because he was convinced that if he reached a certain threshold, the real brands would finally notice his artistic value. I caught him one night at 3 a.m., hunched over his laptop in the dark, refreshing a page that sold followers from overseas. When I confronted him about using our mortgage money for fake clout, he screamed at me. He said I didn't have vision, and that every great entrepreneur had to take risks. He even started a secondary YouTube channel where he gave relationship advice to men, basically painting me as the villainous wife who was trying to stifle his flame. He would record these heart-to-heart videos where he'd look tearfully into the lens and talk about how true kings have to walk alone when their queens don't support the grind. I was horrified. My actual life was being cannibalized for a scripted reality that didn't exist. He even started practicing his signature walk in the grocery store aisles, stopping to take selfies with confused teenagers who were clearly just taking photos to roast him in their group chats later. He grew a thin, patchy beard and started using excessive amounts of hair gel, looking like a low-budget villain from a direct-to-video action movie. Every time I tried to have a serious conversation about our future, he would respond in content speak. He'd say things like, "We need to pivot our energy," or "I'm focusing on my personal brand right now, let's circle back in the next quarter." It was like living with a sentient LinkedIn post that had been fed through a meat grinder of TikTok trends. He even tried to convince me to quit my teaching job so we could move to a content house in LA with a bunch of 19-year-olds he'd met on a Discord server. I remember sitting in our kitchen, watching him explain the ROI of being a lifestyle icon, while he drank an energy drink out of a wine glass because he thought it looked aesthetic. The man I fell in love with used to enjoy quiet Sunday mornings reading the newspaper and making pancakes. Now those pancakes had to be plated with precision, filmed from 4 different angles, and eaten cold because the cinematic lighting wasn't right the first time. He once spent an entire hour arguing with me because I accidentally walked through the background of his manifestation vlog while I was carrying a basket of dirty laundry. He told me I was lowering the vibration of his channel. It was exhausting. I felt like a prop in my own home. I tried staging an intervention with his brother, Dave. Dave is a no-nonsense plumber who doesn't even have a Facebook account. We sat Mark down, and Dave was blunt. He said, "Mark, you look like an idiot. You're 34 years old dancing like a teenager in heat. Stop this before you lose everything." Mark didn't even flinch. He just looked at Dave with this terrifyingly calm, practiced gaze and said, "Dave, you're trapped in the 9-to-5 matrix. You don't understand the creator economy. Stay humble though." Dave walked out, looked at me, and just shook his head. That's when I realized the rot had gone deep. Mark wasn't just doing this for fun anymore. He truly believed he was a superior being because he had a few thousand likes from bot farms and 12-year-olds. He started neglecting our dog. Max used to be his best friend, but now Max was just another guest star in his videos. If Max didn't sit perfectly still for a wholesome dog-dad transition, Mark would get frustrated and ignore him for the rest of the day. It broke my heart. I started sleeping in the guest room because the master bedroom was perpetually filled with soft boxes, tripods, and the smell of cheap hairspray. My life had become a series of behind-the-scenes disasters that I never asked to be a part of. He even started ghosting our real friends because they weren't high-value connections. If they didn't have a blue checkmark on Instagram, they didn't exist to him. He was building a kingdom of shadows, and he was ready to burn our real life to the ground to keep the lights on in his digital one. That was the moment I realized my husband was gone. The man who used to love hiking and talking about history was replaced by a shell that only cared about lighting, filters, and audio sync. So that's where I was. My husband was a viral laughingstock. Our savings were dwindling, my students were mocking me, and he was planning a fan meet and greet at a local mall where I knew no one would show up except people looking to film him for more cringe compilations. I was at the end of my rope, and I knew I had to do something drastic to wake him up before he ruined our lives completely. But before I tell you the absolute nuclear option I chose and how it all blew up in his face, I want you to pause. Think about it. If your spouse was publicly humiliating themselves and your family name every single day, and they refused to listen to reason, what would you do? Would you leave quietly, or would you give them a taste of their own medicine? Go ahead and comment below. I really want to know if you think there was a kinder way out of this mess. Because what I did next wasn't kind. It was calculated. I realized that as long as Mark believed he was a star, he would never stop. I needed him to see exactly what the world saw, without the filter of his ego. I decided to create my own fan account. But instead of praising him, I curated a behind-the-scenes parody account. I used a hidden camera, which I know sounds ETA territory, to record him in the wild. I filmed him spending 40 minutes trying to get the perfect shot of him walking out of a grocery store looking cool, only to trip over a shopping cart. I filmed him yelling at me because I ruined the lighting by opening the curtains. I posted the raw, unedited footage of his cool videos alongside the finished product, showing just how pathetic and desperate the process actually was. I didn't use my name, but the account exploded. It went bigger than his ever did. People started calling it the Cringe Chronicles. I watched the follower count on that account climb to 100,000 in 3 days. People were obsessed with the man behind the cringe. They loved seeing the fake alpha fail at basic tasks. I saw Mark browsing the account one night, his face turning a shade of red I'd never seen before. He was furious, but he still didn't realize it was me. He actually thought he had a stalker, and he tried to use that for content too. He made a video saying, "To the person obsessed with my life, you're just proof that I've made it." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. He started getting more aggressive with his main character, Energy, trying to out-alpha the parody account, which only gave me more embarrassing footage to post. I caught him trying to do a cool guy hair flip that resulted in him hitting his head on a low-hanging lamp, and the footage was golden. He even started investigating his own house, convinced the hater was a neighbor. He'd stand on the balcony and glare at the elderly lady next door, filming her while he whispered into his lapel mic about digital espionage. It was getting dangerous. He was becoming paranoid, but his paranoia was still filtered through the lens of a dark academia aesthetic. He bought a trench coat and started wearing it indoors, detective style. Every morning, I would wake up and check the analytics of the Cringe Chronicles. And the numbers were staggering. People were making reaction videos to my reaction videos. The entire internet was participating in a giant meta-joke, and Mark was the only person who didn't get it. He started getting fan mail, which was really just hate mail disguised as praise, and he'd read it out loud to me like it was gospel. "See, Sarah? This guy says I'm the only real one left on this app." The guy was clearly a troll named MarkSucks69, but my husband was so desperate for validation that he couldn't see the sarcasm. He even tried to start a fitness line, consisting of cheap polyester shirts with "Hustle Harder" printed in a font that was almost impossible to read. He spent the last of our emergency fund on 500 of those shirts, which were now sitting in boxes in our garage. I had reached my limit. The parody account was a hit, but it hadn't stopped him. It had only fueled his fire. He was convinced that the attention, no matter how negative, was a sign of impending greatness. He started talking about a world tour, which really just meant he wanted to drive to different parks and film himself doing meditation sessions for his people. I knew the live stream was his last stand. He had hyped it up for weeks, calling it the evolution. He told everyone he was being signed to a major agency that would take him to the next level. I knew there was no agency. I had checked his emails, something I'm not proud of, but I was desperate. The agency was a burner account. This was the moment. The comments were calling for a grand reveal of the parody account's owner. I knew I had to time it perfectly. The climax happened when Mark decided to go live for his big announcement. He had convinced himself a major talent agency was scouting him. He dressed up in a tuxedo, in our tiny apartment, and started a live stream. He was acting so arrogant, telling his fans that he was leaving the haters behind. That's when I walked into the frame. Not as the supportive wife, but as the person who held the mirror up. I didn't say a word. I just turned on a projector I had hidden behind the sofa. It projected his behind-the-scenes parody account directly onto the wall behind him. Thousands of people watching the live saw the cool Mark on his phone screen and the real Mark, tripping, fumbling, and throwing tantrums, on the wall behind him. The comments section moved so fast it was a blur of LMAO and caught in 4K. Mark turned around, saw the footage, and realized for the first time that the entire internet wasn't in awe of him. They were laughing at the guy who couldn't even walk straight without 3 takes. The look on his face wasn't just anger, it was total, crushing realization. The digital shield he had built around his ego shattered in front of 30,000 live viewers. He tried to grab the projector, but he tripped over his own ring light cord, falling flat on his face while the camera was still rolling. It was the ultimate cringe finale. He stayed on the floor for what felt like an eternity. The audio was still picking up his heavy breathing. The chat was ruthless. Is he dead? F in the chat for the Sigma. The projector did more damage than the divorce. I finally walked over and turned off the camera. The silence that followed was deafening. He didn't even look at me. He just got up, took off the tuxedo jacket, which was actually a size too small and had a rented tag still attached, and walked into the bedroom. He didn't come out for 2 days. I spent that time packing my bags. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sick. I had used his own weapon against him, and it worked too well. The aftermath was silent. He ended the stream immediately. The agency he thought was scouting him? It turned out to be a prank account run by some teenagers who wanted to see how far he'd go. He lost his fame in an instant as he became the poster child for delusional influencers. We separated a week later. He couldn't forgive me for betraying his trust and ruining his moment. And I couldn't forgive him for choosing a ring light over his wife. He tried to sue me for emotional distress and loss of potential earnings, but the lawyer laughed him out of the office when he saw the TikToks. The lawyer actually told him that my parody account probably had more earning potential than his actual channel. That was the final nail in the coffin. He moved back in with his parents, and last I heard, he's still trying to rebrand as a comeback king, but the internet never forgets. Every time he tries to post a serious video, someone just comments a link to the Cringe Chronicles, or a gif of him falling over the shopping cart. He's become a digital ghost, a meme that refuses to die but has no life left in it. My life is finally quiet again. My students stopped whispering, though a few of them still ask for insider tea, which I never give. I kept the house, but I had to throw out all the furniture he'd used as props because the sight of that velvet chair he used for his CEO speeches made me want to scream. I've started seeing a therapist to deal with the guilt, but honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I realize I didn't destroy a career. I destroyed a delusion. Mark was a man addicted to a world that didn't exist, and I was the only person brave enough to pull the plug. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't done it. Would he have eventually spent every penny we had? Would he have ended up in a dangerous situation trying to get viral footage? I think I saved him from a much worse fate, even if he hates me for it. I see him occasionally on my feed, a shadow of the man I married, still trying to find that one trend that will bring him back to the top. It's sad, but it's not my burden anymore. Eva delete TikTok. I've sold the ring lights. I've reclaimed my living room. At the end of the day, I learned that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, especially when they're blinded by the digital spotlight. Fame is a hell of a drug, even when it's the cringe kind. I lost my husband, but I found my peace of mind, and honestly, that's a trade I'd make again any day. If you think I did the right thing by giving him a reality check, hit that like button. If you think I went too far by exposing him like that, let me hear it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories where real life gets weirder than fiction. And share this with anyone who spends a little too much time on TikTok. I'll see you all in the next story.